Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man. Please uh, do me a favor, give me a high five, give me a like down there, and also please smash subscribe for me so that you can keep up with my content. So today we're going to be talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, and man, this one has been a bit emotional for me. I even weeped a little. I'm not going to go into what I think of the film yet, so don't take that as my judgment on the film. But I honestly, you just feel a little bit emotionally shaken when you watch these things. But anyway, the story is about Fred Hampton. He's the chairman. He was the chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party. There's going to be huge spoilers ahead. I kind of hate saying that in this context. It'll be spoilers to real life, ladies and gentlemen, spoilers to actual history. How postmodern can we get? So, you know, this young brave man, Fred Hampton, who was, one of he was the chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, um, was killed at the young age of 21, murdered by the FBI police at the behest of um, Edgar Hoover, or J. Edgar Hoover. The movie, and he's betrayed by the Judas of the title, who is FBI informant William O'Neill. It's directed by the director that I don't know much about. I'm going to be honest. Shaka King, and Will Burson, and Shaka King wrote the script, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Lakeith Stanfield, and Jesse Plemons, among others like Charlie Sheen. And there's a young woman here who I do want to call out. I have an interesting knowledge of the Black Panthers. I have somewhat of a knowledge of them, but it's not as much as I would like. I read around them, but my memory is some of the aspects of what happened in them. If this is historically accurate. But I also wanted to point out Dominic Fishback, who played Deborah Johnson, Fred Hampton's wife. Um, so, I mean, I've got a lot of complicated feelings towards this. I recently watched the film The Trial of the Chicago 8. I believe it's Trial of the Chicago 8. Let me just double check that. Trial of the Chicago 7. Obviously written, by the quite brilliant Aaron Sorkin, and directed by him. And it's an interesting point of comparison because the movies both feature, prominent Black Panther members. The Trial of the Chicago 7 actually featured Bobby Seale, who was one of the founders of the Black Panther Party with Huey P. Newton. Um, so obviously with Aaron Sorkin writing the script, there's going to be a lot of poetry. I can think you can see the red in my eyes. I was literally just crying a little bit before I went on, just because it's just emotional in this turbulent year, to watch something like this. It it just hits home to where we've come as a society, in terms of if there's been any healing between black and white um, people, if there's been any real confrontation with the issues underlying um, certain things that still divide us till this day. The inability to really understand where each other are coming from, and it hurts because I think it should be so easy. Uh, I kind of look at this world as a really really beautiful world, and I can't understand how we can't figure it out so that we can live together happily without um, so much conflict, so much anger and hatred. So anyway, that's the feelings the film brought up. Now let me talk about the film. Um, in terms of the film, I want to start off with the performances by everyone. Now, Daniel Kaluuya, I'm not as familiar with this kind of aspect of the story. Perhaps it was because I knew of Fred Hampton's death, and when I read those kind of things, I get very kind of emotionally involved, and it's really a struggle for me to read about that. I remember reading about the one of the kind of South African leaders, Stephen Biko, when he died. He was a South African leader who was a really, really great leader, and such a smart, intelligent, brave, soulful, and just so right on the money in everything he was thinking, and he wanted to give pride back to the black South Africans, and celebrate the culture of black South Africans, but not in hate to white people or in any kind of rejection of them. And he was so witty and funny as well. And he was just snuffed out. And I remember reading that book when I was very, very young. I think I was about 9 years old. And I remember just feeling so defeated that I almost never wanted to read, anything about Black history again. And that was very silly of me. I should have continued. But, I heard, oh, Malcolm X, what happened to him? He died, when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, Martin Luther King, what happened to him? Oh, he died. Okay, so they like pretty much snuffed out all of our great leaders. And it was just very, very hard. I'd rather just read, great works of fiction or stuff like that. So I stuck to reading those kind of things instead. So Fred Hampton was one of those things I guess I avoided. But I do remember I had a particular fascination with Huey P. Newton at a certain point in life. And so I read up on him, but it was a very, very long time ago. And, I know the kind of outline of his story, but in any case, so what the reason why I'm saying this or bringing this up is because it's really hard for me to judge Daniel Kaluuya's performance. Everything I've seen of Fred Hampton, um, he is incredibly charismatic, and he's somewhat of a compelling speaker. But I never found him to be, have the kind of compelling kind of poetic rhythm, and this isn't a slight on him in any way, but like um, the kind of gravitas that some like a speaker like Martin Luther King had, which is he's one of the greatest speakers in human history, and as an orator, and he was magnificent. So to compare anybody to him is, it's hard. So Fred Hampton was much more kind of low key. He spoke the language of the people. It It wasn't, do you know what I mean? There was rhythm and soul to what he was saying, and obviously what he was saying had a lot of truth to it. But he struck me as more of an everyday person who was just a great leader, just a really solid, brave individual. And in that sense, I do think Daniel Kaluuya really captured that. But I don't know how, um, for me, in terms of just watching it as a film, how well that translated to film, to be honest. When you watch the trial of the Chicago Seven by comparison, or uh, even, the Martin Luther King movie, Selma, and a number of different, even going back to Stephen Biko, who I was talking about and earlier, the South African black leader who was played by Denzel Washington. um, the poetry of the scripts, the um, the kind of rhythm of the scripts, just struck me as something more compelling to watch. Um, so in those terms, I don't know. I think the script itself could have been sharper and given Daniel Kaluuya a bit more to work with. But in terms of the big scenes, I don't know if he was just trying to copy one for one what how Fred Hampton acted and how he spoke. So Fred Hampton again was very, very engaging in his own way, but not in the same way as like a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King, where it's like everything is just this quotable, great, and just the power. It was more, just he was a great general, a soldier, the Caesar. He was just a leader who led by example almost. Um, and so, as I said, as a film character or a character that you're watching in film, I don't. I think they could have made it a little bit more compelling, a little bit more nuanced. Maybe showed some of the darker aspects of his character, some of his fears. It was a little bit one note. That's what I would say. It was like, this is the noble hero with no human foibles or flaws. Um, and I think that didn't give Daniel Kaluuya enough range to sink his teeth into, but it was a competent performance. And I will keep on echoing that throughout the performances. I think probably Dominic Fishback as Deborah Johnson gave the most powerful performance to me. I thought she was absolutely wonderful. So there's that, and um, so I'll go through the yes. uh, so yeah, I think that performance was for me the most outstanding in the film. Um, I'll go through a list of characters with you, so maybe you can see. I was just looking it up now. Um, Jesus, it's really hard because I'm just trying to be objective and say what I think of the film, but like, because of the topic of the film, it just means a hell of a lot to me. So it's hard to be strictly objective and just talk about it as a film. Um, so again, Jesse Plemons is always pleasant in his performances, but again, I don't know that they gave him enough to dig into here. Um, the Lakeith Stanfield, I haven't seen him in much. From this performance, I couldn't tell if he was a great actor or just a normal, actor. I'd have to see him in something else, in very, very different kind of role to really work that out. But in terms of this role, it wasn't an iconic performance to me. I didn't see any performance here being really that iconic. I would like to watch this film again, to give it another go. I felt like I got a bit distracted at times, and maybe because I was I'd heard that it was a lot like a Scorsese movie from another reviewer. I was expecting something a little bit more snappy and, slick, and some, uh, I don't know, some risk taking in terms of the direction. I thought it was lacking in terms of that. I think the filmmakers are good, really, really competent. I'm sure this will get a lot of Oscar love. I don't know that I personally would vote for it in terms of the Oscars, or vote for any particular performance in terms of the Oscars. But what I will say about this film, that I think everyone should watch it, because what it does do is give you a great account of a federally um, organized and ordered execution of a human being, an absolute 100% execution. And it tells you about the compensation that was received, which was ludicrous.